Welcome back to Words of Life. I'm Bernie Dake, and I am so excited today because we have one of my favorite people on the planet. He's my friend. He's my former boss, and you might know him as Lieutenant Colonel Eddie Hobgood. Eddie, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. It's nice to be, I guess, home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back in the ATL.
The ATL, home for a lot of years.
It has been said that if you teach a kid to blow a horn, he'll never blow a safe. And honestly, that is part of your story.
Absolutely.
Not that you were destined to be a bank robber, but you were someone that was taught to make music on a cornet way back when, and it changed the course of your forever. And we want to tell your story again right here on Words of Life.
Yeah, absolutely. And music is a huge part of my development, the transformation of my life, but also even to this day, music has been a constant in my life, and for a lot of years kept me on the straight and narrow. So it's a huge part of my story.
Well, we're going to talk about that. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Our listeners need to know, who is Eddie Hobgood? Where did he come from? How did he grow up? And then we'll tell them some of the highlights along the way, because you really have had, like we were just talking about, a global impact in your ministry.
Well, I'm not sure about a global impact, but I've been around the globe. That's kind of mind-blowing, especially when you stop and think about where I started. So
which is where?
Well, I was actually born on Easter Sunday in Norfolk, Virginia, and Easter is a Sunday that we celebrate new life. But on that particular Sunday, it wasn't such a great celebration. I was born to a single woman who was actually in the, I guess, the oldest profession in the world, they say.
Oh, yes. I've read about that somewhere.
My mother was a prostitute. She had gotten pregnant by a young man who was in the military, and he shipped out. And so she gave birth to me. She did not, when I was born, they didn't bring me and put me in her arms. She didn't want to see me. She didn't want to touch me. She didn't want anything to do with me. So they took me away. Not that I would remember, but I never felt that embrace at birth of my birth mother, and never knew her, and never knew my birth father. There was a young couple from the eastern part of North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, who had been married for several years and could not have children. So they wanted to adopt, and somehow Greenville, North Carolina and Norfolk, Virginia hooked up. And I was, a few days after being born, was brought down to Greenville, where I grew up. About 2 years after I was born, my mother was able to conceive and had 4 children.
Wow.
So I have 4 siblings. And life was good. My dad had his own business, and my mother was a full-time homemaker, obviously. But then one day he got cancer, and it didn't kill him, but it shook him, and he went into this really deep depression and became an alcoholic. And because of that, we lost everything. And we lost our house, lost a car, everything. And so had to move to the wrong side of the tracks, which is where the first, after about 4 or 5 is when that happened. Up until I was about 17 or 18, we lived in that section of town. So it was pretty rough. There were some days we didn't know where we were going to get a meal from. If we were going to be able to make the rent, that kind of stuff. So it was a pretty rough period growing up.
But at some point in the course of your life, you're introduced to the Salvation Army. And what's that story?
Yeah. Well, I had been attending, not regularly, a church. But, let's just lay it out there, because I was poor white trash. Honestly, some of the folks at the church, they just kind of, looked down at you, didn't want the kids to play with you or anything like that. So I was not happy at this church, and nobody was forcing me to go. Nobody, because my father and mother were not Christians at the time. Like I said, he was drunk. He began having an affair. My mother to retaliate. She started having affairs. These were open affairs right in front of us. She became an alcoholic and drinking, and it was just really bad at home. And I guess church was kind of the place to escape, but it wasn't a place of escape because I was being judged for things I had no control over. And so one Sunday afternoon, and back in the day, they had this thing called Blue Law. And so stores couldn't open. Only the drugstore or a restaurant could open. So it was really quiet. People stayed in their homes for the most part. Yeah. Sunday afternoons were quiet time. And I remember one Sunday afternoon, I was just kind of sitting around the house, and all of a sudden I heard this noise, music, and I'm like, the circus has come to town. So I jumped up, I ran to the end of the block, thinking I was going to see the circus, but I saw this group of men and women dressed in these dark black uniforms, and there was a guy beating a big bass drum. There was another guy, later found out was the corps officer, Wayne McCart, playing a cornet. His wife, Susan, was playing the accordion. And then there was this rather rotund lady singing at the top of her lungs, "Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power?" And I looked at these people and I'm like, wow, I found my people.
That's right.
I'm like, wow, who are these people? I want to get to know them. So the guy, when he finished beating the bass drum, while the officer's giving the devotion, he's walking around talking to the folks in the crowd, and he says, we have programs on Tuesday afternoons for kids. We'll come and pick you up. I'm like, what? You'll come and pick me up? So I started going to they called it Junior Legion way back then.
Okay.
Youth activities and character building on Tuesday afternoons. And then it wasn't long, just a couple of weeks or so, where they said, we have this music program. And they put a cornet in my hand. And at the time, we had a college student working at the Corps and going to East Carolina College, then I guess it's university now. And he started teaching me how to play the cornet. And then he gave me a couple of piano lessons. And it totally changed my life.
Wow.
Like I said, I was a kid living on the wrong side of the tracks. I was getting into mischief, and honestly, my future didn't look all that bright.
Yeah.
I didn't need sunglasses. This gift that the Salvation Army gave me totally changed my life. It is true, the quote that you said, and I'm not sure that I was destined to blow safes,
right.
But it taught me discipline.
Yeah.
It taught me responsibility. It gave me a skill set that when I actually left elementary school and went into junior high, and we had band and music programs and orchestra and all that sort of stuff, it set me on a track that I would have never, ever been on. And honestly, I don't know that I would have, but I would have most likely dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
But it was this music program that I was involved in at school, but also at the same time simultaneously with the Salvation Army. Because at the Salvation Army, it wasn't just locally at the Corps, but early on, I got involved with divisional events. So, I auditioned and got into the divisional youth band at the age of 12, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then with that, you get involved in other things, other divisional events, singing groups, drama groups, and you become involved, and really it becomes a part of your life. So at home, life was just absolutely horrible. Just absolutely horrible. And on top of that, when I was 15, well, let me backtrack just a little bit, because after I started going to the Army, a couple years into it, the Army came faithfully every time the door was open and picked us up and carried us to church, because mother and father couldn't do that. But eventually, my mother started attending the Army, and one day she got saved.
Praise the Lord.
And that started a transformation in her house. And it wasn't long after that my dad got clean and sober, and he got saved at the Salvation Army.
Amen.
And so life was actually turning around. He got a great job, and life was going really good. At 15, December the 1st, my dad, who had actually been elected, I guess, to be the chief of police in a nearby town, was coming back home because our Greenville's the county seat, and he was coming to the county courthouse, and he was killed in a head-on collision with a dump truck. He was killed instantly. So, this, once again, just kind of turned our lives upside down. But, he had been saved like 6 months before this happened. So this total transformation at home. So all this great stuff was happening at school. All this amazing stuff was happening at the Salvation Army. And finally, all this good stuff was starting to happen at home. And then this tragedy struck. But I have to say, the Salvation Army family just surrounded us and loved us and walked with us every step of the way through that journey. And that was transformational for me as well, because by this time, I was 15 years old and beginning to think, what do I want to do with my life? So I got to backtrack a little bit. I started going to camp. And I remember going to Camp York, not Camp Walter Johnson, which is there, this lovely facility now. But Camp York was pretty rustic. But at Camp York, I got to go to youth camp and I got to go to music camp. And at youth camp, I made a real serious decision to follow Jesus.
Amen.
And then the next week, 2 weeks of camping, on the Sunday afternoon concert, they gave a call to officership. And I felt this strange, warm feeling, this desire that I needed to go forward and give my life to Salvation Army officership. Now, I was only 12 when that happened, but it never left me. So as I got older and thinking about what I want to do with my life, this calling never really faded. So as I got a little bit older, I started getting very interested in this young lady at the Corps that I had known since I was 9. She was never really that interested in me, but I was very interested in her. But when we became teenagers, we started dating. Kathy,
yes,
my now wife, Kathy, of 47 years.
The other half,
and most people would say the better half, and I would certainly say the brighter half. She's certainly smarter. But she had felt called to officership too. So this was kind of a no-brainer thing.
Yeah.
So we got married and we knew we were going to go to training. And as happens, there are people saying, well, you need to go now. You need to go now. And, we like a couple years, we like to be married. And then after about a year of marriage, this maternal, paternal thing kind of kicks in. We'd like to have a child and then we'll go. And so everybody said, okay, all right, all good. But a year went by, we couldn't conceive, and another year went by, and we couldn't conceive. And so we sought some professional help, and the verdict came back, there's a medical problem, a physical problem. You probably should think about adopting.
Yeah.
Which was not a bad thing for me because I had been adopted. Yeah. And so I have this little special place in my heart for those kinds of things. So we said, okay, in that case, then the excuse for not going to training yet is gone. So we go to training, and this is August. We go in August, and in December, Kathy was pregnant with our first child, Annie. That taught me a lesson of faithfulness. God's going to take care of things. You do what I'm asking you to do, and I'll take care of it. So, yeah.
Now, the thing is, our listeners, that story is incredible. It's the full stop. But our listeners might know some of that family that surrounded you, because we've had that college student that you talk about on this very podcast, Vern Jewett.
Yep. Lieutenant Colonel Vern Jewett. Yep, my childhood idol.
He was part of that early circus that attracted you to the Salvation Army.
So, Wayne and Susan McCarg were the Corps officers. Yeah. And then we only had them a couple of years, and then Al and Bobby Sue Smith came during my very formative years. As a matter of fact, when I graduated from high school, they let me move into their home. Yeah. They were stationed in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. And so I lived with them for a while when I was going to school. Very, very important people to me and my life. Matter of fact, Al Smith, I call him Dad because I feel like, he's the dad I never had.
Yeah. Now, I know that we would be doing a disservice to your story if we don't sort of go through that officership career, because we take the music aspect of your early life and the ministry aspect of the calling that you've accepted, and then the opportunities that you have been given, literally. I know because we've worked together on several of these things, but
Right.
you've written full-blown musical theater shows, productions. You have
Insane.
one-man shows. You've got multiple people shows. It's just incredible. So give us the, I don't even want to say the Reader's Digest version, but just tell us a little bit more about the things that you've been able to do.
Yeah, as far back as I can remember, I've loved the arts. I remember as a third grader, every third grader in the city got to go to the university, East Carolina University, and see their production of Oliver.
Wow.
It's the first musical I ever saw. And it was, I can still, as though I'm sitting there watching, I can still see staging, the music, the singing, the acting was just, Broadway quality.
Yeah.
And that was when I think the bug really hit me. And I really, really, really wanted to be involved in theater. So in high school, I was in musicals at high school with the Army. Obviously back in the day, every youth councils, there was a musical. And I had the privilege to be in several of those. The corps I grew up in was a very artsy corps. They really promoted the arts, all kinds of arts. And matter of fact, the first play I ever wrote was a Christmas play called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Oh. It was awful. It was like everybody dies. It was horrible. It was horrible. And friends who were in it and remember it make fun of me all the time when they say that. It always comes up in the conversation. It was horrible, but my corps supported it, and they supported me. And as bizarre as it was the Christmas musical that year. So when we decided that, we're going to go to training, I did say to myself, this love, this passion I have for the arts, I'm probably going to have to put that on the shelf. Not fully understanding how the Army, and because I was in a little small community, not understanding how far spread and flung arts is in the Army at that time. I didn't. So we go to training, and then of course, we're in a brigade where there's music, and you do a musical when you're going campaigns, and then at commissioning every year back then, we did a musical. Yeah. And so, Blood of the Lamb was the first one that we did, and then the second one was Hosea, and I got to play the lead part, which was pretty amazing. And so. We get commissioned. We go to our corps. We had 3 corps appointments first before we went to headquarters. But in a couple of those corps, we had some amazing young people, teenagers, young adults, and had phenomenal contemporary singing groups. And we also got asked to direct the youth council's musicals. So I was, very involved in all of that. Then we go and become DYSs, and we're able to take all those things that we had learned and we had experienced and put that into our youth ministry. So every year that we were DYS, 7 of those years, we were DYSs. We did musicals at youth councils. One year we did 2 musicals. We had so many kids that wanted to be in them. So music, the arts became a really important part of our ministry. So this desire, this longing that I had was being fulfilled in ways that I never imagined it could be or would be as an officer. When I was a DYS in Florida.
When you say DYS, you're talking...
Divisional Youth Secretary.
Okay, gotcha.
A person who oversees the youth work for a Salvation Army division.
Right.
For us, we had 2 divisions. Kentucky, Tennessee was one division, our first division, and then the Division of Florida was our second division. While in Florida, I got an assignment to portray a Salvation Army officer named Joe the Turk. Back in 1992, the Salvation Army had a National Advisory Organizations Conference in Washington, D.C. It was hosted by the Southern Territory. And one of the things that was happening was a living walk-through history museum. And it took 15 minutes to go through the museum. And so while people were going through the museum, the crowd that was waiting outside needed to be entertained. So I was assigned to write a 15-minute monologue with music to entertain the crowd as Joe the Turk. And so that's kind of how my association with Joe the Turk came about. So I had the chance to perform that, share that over 50 times that one weekend. And then when I came home, people started asking me to come to their corps and do it. So when we became the territorial youth secretaries, overseeing all the youth work of the Army in the Southern United States, I was given the opportunity to expand that 15-minute monologue into a 50-minute presentation with music and more.
I hate to interrupt you, but like in 1992, that's when my wife and I got married, and we came straight back to Washington, D.C. for that Advisory Organizations Conference. And I saw that show. I didn't even realize that, Eddie.
Wow.
That's the first time I would have seen Joe the Turk, which, by the way, is the subject matter of a book that you've published. And if the listeners want to know more about that, you're going to have to join us next week, right here on Words of Life.